Hello, I'm Robert Priest, Art Design Cafe, and this is the third part of The Duke of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha and Emily Hall Tremaine. In the third part, I'm going through a declassified document from the Political Archive in Berlin that was pulled up in 2019 by Volker Welter, published in the books Tremaine Houses. It's a document by a German consul to Los Angeles, Georg Gissling, sent to the German embassy in Washington. It's dated 10 April 1940, and it discusses the Duke of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha's trip to the Los Angeles area over about 4 or 5 days for that. Okay, so the key questions that I'm working with are: was Emily pro-Nazi, a patriot spy, or in this case, just stuck in one of the most surreal situations of the time? Was this a spy operation, the event at her house? Thinking of her family, Ellis Zacharias, and the secret rooms in the house, which I don't have details on that, but, were they good for spying activity? We can imagine with this event that not only is German intelligence or Nazi German intelligence there with the Duke's visit, but certainly US and British intelligence would want to be there to see what is going on, who is speaking to whom, who is friendly, etc., and who are these people. At some point, I hope to get a copy of the guest list. Presumably, it was arranged by Gissling. It would be very informative. For example, I want to know, was Elsa Chancellor at this event? Another consideration and why more declassified intelligence is needed is, for example, in her secret deposition, Emily says that Elsa, she did it as a favor to Elsa. Well, I don't really like to go into, was so and so lying or something like that. But we have to consider the following of the time. I mean, imagine that Bennett Noble, her brother in law, who worked in U.S. Navy towards intelligence at least, or Ellis Zacharias asked Emily to do it. Well, she can't necessarily say that because then she'd be blowing cover of an operation or things like that. So, again, more research is needed into the declassified intelligence sphere. But there are a lot of questions still, but we know a lot more than 5 and certainly 20 years ago. So this document is dated the 10th of April, 1940. It's Gissling writing to his boss at that time. You'd have to check. I recall that the situation by that time may have changed with the German embassy, whether there was an ambassador there or sort of a first secretary, something like that, or it happened shortly thereafter for that. But it was the highest, I believe, it was the highest ranking figure of the German government in the U.S. What's interesting is we have to think of Gissling's context as we review this document. And if you want to get it, it's at the Political Archive in Berlin. It's in German. It's probably best. It's footnote 59 in Volker Welter's book Tremaine Houses, page 60, and you can get the full German listing and get a copy for it. Or if you like, email artdesigncafe@gmail.com and I'll pass on the copy I have for that. So it's all very jolly. You should know something. So I've had a year of German some years ago, and I literally am looking through Google Translate. So it's an estimate for this. He offers like a 4 page summary. Again, Gissling, you got to deal. He's writing to his boss, and Gissling, as we know, is in some context a double agent to U.S. military. So he has to please / inform this boss, this German Nazi boss in Washington. So it's something to, I was thinking about it as I was reading through it. So it's what's very struck me that's very interesting is there's this whole issue on how he was pitched. The Duke was pitched to the American crown and media. First, he's Queen Victoria's grandson, then he's head of the German Red Cross, and then he's, to some extent, part of the Nazi German regime. In this document, this is an internal document, there is no mention about him being Queen Victoria's grandson. It's all about Nazi Germany at first, and then representing Germany in that way, and then secondly, the Red Cross. So this, they know what they're doing. That's my estimate. That's my assessment off of what I've seen so far. Also, what's interesting is Gissling says that he's actively steered the press coverage onto the social pages, the social news, and away from the hard news journalists that were generally more critical for it. So he's pushing this through the social news, which is in this context a softer touch, if you will. He also says that the area Red Cross people, the depth of them, if you will, are avoiding him and the Duke. And, so that was quite interesting. Now I'm going to go through the schedule because that he had, because it initially shocked me, and it may shock some people for it. The program. All right. So the Duke arrives in Southern California on the 4th of April, and he goes to Palm Springs for a social event. And there are two names here. I won't mention them there, but one is sort of hosting it, and the other, and it's held at a woman's house, and she happens to be in Mexico City. All right. And if you, in the circles I am with sort of Nazi history in America, Mexico, especially Mexico City, that's a red flag. What are you doing there? Because there's lots of Nazi activity and movement of information and things through Mexico, and also even down to Argentina for this. So that's a red flag. Also, it says, I believe that one of them is the wife of the president of the Security First National Bank of California. So this is the higher end set for that. And then he's, let's see, where's he going here? He's staying at the Mission Inn in Riverside. I don't know that classic hotel. Now, on the 5th of April, he goes from Palm Springs / Riverside over to Los Angeles. And he's either meeting with the mayor or the assistant to the mayor for this. And then he's at an event with, it looks like the president of trade at the Ambassador Hotel. The Ambassador Hotel was actually a hotel that Emily, I recall seeing stayed at. So it's a bit of the posher line of hotels, and they're just letting him right in. Then, so moving on the 5th. Yeah, the 5th. All right, so there's an informal luncheon in the Beverly Wilshire Hotel. So, for that. For that. So we're seeing that he's just going into these posh environments, and presumably they're allowing this for whatever reason. Then, right, and then later in the afternoon, and there's a report on this in the Los Angeles, I recall the Los Angeles Times, he's in the Beverly Hills Hotel for that. So with the fashionable set. So Gissling says that in this crowd in Los Angeles, there is not immediately a negative view towards Nazi Germany, which of course we find disturbing. There's mention of that he might have, I think it says that he's either went to, it doesn't, you'd have to read it. It mentions the Coconut Grove, which is the Ambassador Hotel, or Earl Carroll's for that. The next day, he's in, it looks like, a garden tour in Bel Air. And then he goes to Hidden Valley to a luncheon at Frank Powell's place. This is president of the Portland Cement Company for the West Coast. So this is quite interesting in the sense, if you think of the Frome Murders book, Fetch the Devil by Richardson, because in that case there were two presumed targeted um, people in construction uh, for that as well. So the issue of construction, but also in that sphere. All right, then he goes back to the Ambassador Hotel, and then there's a buffet dinner in the evening at we see this name a lot, Paul von Gontard. If you search Paul von Gontard in the California press, it's not clear where he stands. He's a he you know the, he could be a spy. We don't know, but I would look at the name. There's he's he's around Gissling, and you don't know how when you're dealing with Gissling, he's playing both sides of this in his double agent role. Then Sunday, the 7th of April, this is where it gets interesting. Before he goes to Santa Barbara, he's at Hindenburg Park. If you don't know Hindenburg Park, that is the park in Los Angeles where there was a swastika sculpture. Now, I don't know, I haven't found yet if the sculpture was up during the time of the Duke's visit, but that's at least at times it's a kind of a Nazi supporting area for that. And there was an event there with more of the general folks, if you will, the working folks around his visit there. And then he goes to Santa Barbara. So by 2 o'clock, he's scheduled to be in the Samarkand Hotel. The Samarkand Hotel. This was a hotel owned by Alma Spreckels, the famous philanthropist in San Francisco, and Adolph B. Spreckels' mother, Adolph B. Spreckels Jr., his mother. And of course, that is who Emily had this. She married him after a year of marriage. She said he was a Nazi. So this is wildly interesting, if you will, for that. Now, we don't know how this arrangement took place and who arranged it. I mean, with limited information, you just can't assume, Alma Spreckels supported this. She may not even have been aware, maybe even her entire life. Yeah, Adolf, it's his mother's place. He's in town. She's not, but we don't know. Alma Spreckels could have been there at the hotel. You would think that because she was known as to be a bit of a royal chaser. She was friends with Queen Marie of Romania. I wouldn't say friends, contacts with. And if you look at her biography, there's a whole issue about that. She set up something up in near Portland, Oregon, related to that. It's this strange Romanian royalty influenced museum on the Columbia River. And I won't get into that, but Alma was orientated toward that, and that's a relative of this Duke for that. Plus, there's all other indirect connections, knowledge connections between Alma and the Duke and Duchess of Windsor, who's an ally to the Duke of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha. So it's really weird, if you will, for that. But it could have been Adolf or even Emily just called the hotel and said, "Could you, put the Duke up for a couple of nights?" So we don't know. That kind of needs more research. So then, and what's interesting is it's noted here that the Duke has the evening free. Well, what did he do? What did he do, and who was he around, or was he just relaxing in his suite? At 4:20, he's noted to visit the oil industry, an oil industry person. I won't necessarily say the name. It's in the newspaper for that. So again, infrastructure, if you will, and oil So, and again, we've got this triple thing going on here. Queen Victoria's grandson, then we have head of the Red Cross, and then we have ally to the Nazi regime. Then on Monday, this is when it's happening for Emily. So at 11 o'clock in the morning, the garden tour of Santa Barbara that Emily has arranged takes place, and it looks like it could have been over several hours through these posh gardens of stuff. And in terms of a developing discourse, we can imagine that there are other people that have commented on this situation. So I think there's a good chance we can get to the bottom of this, of where Emily exactly was on that. Not only through intelligence, but through this social set of, so and so was there for that. Then there's the buffet dinner for about 60 guests, uh, I believe, at Emily's villa for that. Supposedly, Gisling supplied the guest list. And I recall vaguely a notation somewhere that the Duke wore a pin with a Nazi flag on his lapel walking through these gardens. And if we think of, again, that U.S. Military intelligence and British want to know what's going on here, that you can just picture it, with these elite, uh, uh, I think it's called the Gilded Age gardens in wealthy Montecito, and it could be a three-country spy operation. And then thankfully it ends, and the Duke at 11:44 is scheduled to take the Southern Pacific Express train, the Lark, to San Francisco. And good riddance, Duke of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha.